Tick tock, the time runs out. Tick tock, the video. Tick tock, the time runs out.
Stand up now or fade down.
Tick tock, the time video. Tick tock, the time runs out.
They lock us down, steal our rights, sell us dreams to dim the fight. Tell us wait, just trust the plan, while they take more from our hands. But we ain't sleeping, we ain't blind. We see the games, we read the signs. No more silence, no more shame. Get mad, get loud, ignite the flame. Get mad, get loud. Shake the ground, wake up the crowd. No retreat, no backing down. This is our fight, this is our sound.
Talk, the time runs out. Tick tock, the time video. Tick tock, the time runs out.
They push us back, say stay in line. Spin their words, rewrite our minds. But the louder we get, the stronger we stand. And we ain't done till we take back this land. They cage the truth, we tear the bars. They dim the light, we burn like stars. They stack the deck, but we rewrite fate. This ain't submission, this is rage awake. This is our sound. Break free, break through, tear the walls. No more sleep, we take it all.
Talk, the time runs out. Talk, the time runs out. Talk, the time runs out.
Get mad, no more chewing, just no more doubt. More doubt.
Here we are. Today is 7/22/2029. 7 plus 2 plus 2 is 11. Plus the 2025. That's 119. Everything's coded. Congress also said they were convening until September 2nd. That's 9/11. Hey, everybody. Glad to have everybody here. Hey, everybody. Oh.
Sorry. I already did it.
How'd you do that? Is that on the...
Sorry.
The other TV started playing in the background. Little update on Mike. He's still needing prayers.
Yeah, Mike still needs prayers. He has good days and he has bad days. So we just need to keep praying for him, and we'll just keep going, right? And with the support of all of y'all, we're just gonna hang in there and keep the train going, right? So just keep him in your prayers for him and his family. And we'll update you the next time we get an update.
We spoke with him today, though.
Yes, we spoke to him today.
Yeah. But that's the update. I said that's the update for Mike.
That's an update. Yeah, we didn't speak long. Still not a lot of energy, so we just try to limit when we do contact him. If we haven't heard from him for a while, then we contact him because we know he he needs his peace and his time to heal, and we don't want to bother him with, constantly calling him. So um, that's the update on Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not talking about the shit show at all.
Because that's exactly
That's at
what
least
it is.
Yeah.
And it's just will put you in a bad mood, bad vibrations. It's beyond ridiculous right now, and we just don't want to go down that, because it's not going to lead you into anything good. But we do have to discuss important topics, like we're going to go over the Great Taking. If you haven't watched the documentary, I posted it on the Telegram. We played it several months ago when Mike played it on the show, and you need to watch that. It's very informative. It's what the bankers have planned, but this is the way to expose the bankers to the masses,
Right.
and take them down. But the gold and silver, as per the Constitution, is what's going to save us. So every state needs to implement the gold and silver. And Texas has already started a bill to, I think they already have, because this video we're fixing to show you was 7 months ago, where they were we had talked about in Forbidden Civics about direct legislation, is what they did. They did the direct legislation and brought it by a citizen and brought it to the legislators' bill. So they had a little progress in Tennessee, and they were trying to get through every state, because that's the only way we can stop the Great Taking. And then the gold and silver, Texas did a bill, which I believe already passed, to start minting off the gold and silver per the Constitution. Each state, that's their responsibility. They're the only ones that can print mint coinage for their state.
Is this it right here?
Yeah, that's the current one for 2025. Let's see.
You want me to show that?
Yeah, the one in yellow is the ones that's already went in gold and silver. I don't know if they have started minting, though, from the Treasury.
All right, here we go.
But I believe Texas already started, or it's in the works.
Florida. Victors. Here we go. Add to the stage.
But you can check your state and see if it's updated. I know they were trying to get every state to accept gold and silver. So, the 2025 Sound Money Legislation Tracker. As Citizens for Sound Money, S4SM, we track the progress of sound money legislation in all 50 states. Our state's Sound Money Legislation Tracker provides a real-time overview of where each state stands in recognizing gold and silver as legal tender, removing taxation, and supporting sound money principles. The tracker includes gold and silver as legal tender, states that have officially recognized gold and silver as legal currency, active legislation, states with sound money bills currently filed under consideration, failed legislation, states where sound money bills have been introduced but has not passed, and no active legislation, states that currently have no sound money bills filed at all. So this resource is designed to inform the public, businesses, and legislators about the ongoing efforts to restore sound money policies at a state level. So you can
check your state.
Yeah, you can, with this website, you can track it, see if the updates on legislation and the bills. So the active legislation is all the ones in yellow. Failed legislation is the ones in red. That's Montana.
Montana, where it shows Joe Biden sniffing on Idaho. See it?
Green is law enacted. And then the multicolor green and yellow is waiting for governor's signature, which It's those Kentucky, Utah, and Idaho. And most legislation failed is the yellow and red, which is North Dakota. So it's in the works. We need all 50 states to have that.
So Montana is really just Joe Biden sniffing on Idaho right here. You see the other person, he's
Right.
leaning in. North Dakota. So Florida, Alabama, Texas, Arizona, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire. All right.
Yes.
Here is
Alabama is taking steps towards recognizing gold and silver as legal tender with newly introduced legislation. Senate Bill 130, introduced by Senator Tim Nelson. The bill authorizes gold and silver bullion as coins as legal tender within the state. The House passed SB 130 following the Senate's earlier approval of the legislation. Now heads to Governor Kay Ivey for her consideration. That's in Alabama. In Alaska efforts to recognize gold and silver as legal tender are now under committee review. House Bill 1, HB 1, sponsored by Representative Kevin McCabe and multiple co-sponsors. This bill recognizes gold and silver specie as legal tender status. As of May 17th, the House State Affairs approved the measure. HB 1 now moved to the House Finance Committee. And then in Arizona is advancing legislation to establish a bullion depository, setting the stage for gold and silver backed transaction currency. Senate Bill 1096, SB 1096, sponsored by Senator Jack Hoffman. This bill establishes the Arizona Bullion Depository to securely store precious metals and support a gold and silver backed currency. Status: the bill has passed the Senate, is now before the House Regulatory Oversight Committee with a hearing scheduled for March 18th, 2 p.m.
Yeah, that's already.
Yeah. Arizona passed HB 214, allowing the use of gold and silver as legal tender and eliminating capital gains taxes on precious metals. So that's what eliminates the taxes. If you use gold and silver, they can't tax gold and silver.
Coinage Act. That's the Coinage Act.
The Coinage Act.
So we got Arkansas passed House Bill 1718, recognizing gold and silver as legal tender within the state. HB 1918 was signed into law, expanding the state's legal tender law and clearing the way for payments to and from the state in gold and silver. California, no active legislation.
Delaware.
Colorado, no bueno.
And
Connecticut, Florida's good. Delaware. Florida's getting real active.
Yeah. Yeah, that bill has been approved by the House.
Yeah. So with 4 major sound money bills introduced, Florida is shaping up to be a battleground state for monetary reform. Senate Bill 132 recognizes gold and silver as legal tender and removes taxes on transactions involving these metals. Senate Bill 134 exempts the sale of gold and silver and platinum bullion from the state's sales tax. There you go. Status: the Senate Banking and Insurance Committee passed 134. Senate Bill 7034, exempting the sale of gold and silver and platinum bullion from the state's sales tax. Status: indefinitely postponed and withdrawn from consideration. Then we got House Bill 999, prevents gold and silver from being classified as taxable personal property and allows government entities to accept them as payment. Status: on April 30th, the House concurred with the Senate amended version in a unanimous 113-0 vote, completing the legislative process and sending the bill to Governor Ron DeSantis for consideration. House Bill 6019. Let's see. seeks to repeal the Florida estate tax, potentially affecting the taxation of gold and silver. Status the bill has been introduced and await hearing. So 733, 7033 revises provisions relating to taxation status. The bill has been approved by the House and is now in the Senate as of May 14th, 2025. Of course, they're all on vacation, 41-day vacation right now.
And it takes them forever to do this stuff, which is crazy.
Georgia, Nueno, Hawaii, Nueno.
Yeah, I'll repost this.
Idaho. Same thing. Adds to existing law to declare gold and silver coin and species as legal tender, while ensuring no person or entity can be forced to accept them. So this is important when we come up onto the digital age, right?
Yes.
Having physical gold and silver, and not only in the physical, but in the spiritual.
Right. Definitely in the spiritual first.
In order to know how to manage it in the physical. Right.
Yes.
You look at these billionaires today, they got billions of dollars and don't know what to do.
And they have no spiritual.
Right. They're just stacking it.
Right.
It's like video game. Who's got the highest score?
Yeah. It's all about money to them.
So Illinois, Nueno, Indiana, good. Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana. Maine. Got some issues in Mississippi, Minnesota, Maryland, and Massachusetts. Michigan is working to establish a state-run bullion depository and introduce a gold-backed currency. House Bill 4086 creates the Michigan Bullion Depository and Miscoin Act, currently in the House Communications and Technology Committee. There's Missouri, Montana. Nope. No good in Montana. Nebraska. Legislation failed in Montana.
Yeah, I wonder why. That's crazy.
Nebraska, Montana, okay. Nevada, no legislation. New Hampshire, active legislation. New Jersey, no active legislation. New Mexico, New York, no active legislation. North Carolina, active legislation. House Bill 836. The Sound Money Act, North Carolina Sound Money Act, that was introduced by Representative Mark Brody along with 3 co-sponsors, have enacted the bill would enable investment coins and refined gold or silver bullion, clearly marked with their weight and purity, to be recognized as legal tender within the state. Status HB 836 moves to the House Finance Committee in May 14th, 2025 update. Okay, we got legislation failed in North Dakota. Oklahoma, you're good. Ohio, I don't know what's up. No active legislation. Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Dakota, South Carolina, no active legislation. Tennessee, active legislation. SB 168. So it passed. Tennessee could join the growing list of states moving toward financial independence from the Federal Reserve System by incorporating gold and silver into its monetary framework. C4SM will continue to monitor and engage with legislator on this critical bill. So there's your out. There's your one thing running in shadow of another.
Right.
And out, right?
Yes.
You always have another
avenue.
And that's where the knowledge comes in.
Yes.
Right. So the Vermont, no legislation. Utah, active legislation. Texas, active legislation. Same as Florida. So in Texas, Texas has introduced multiple bold sound money bills aimed at establishing gold and silver backed currency, expanding state bullion reserves, and enhancing financial sovereignty. House Bill 1049 proposes the issuance of gold and silver specie and the creation of a state-backed currency based on gold and silver reserves. Status assigned to the House State Affairs Committee for review. House Bill 1056, similar to 1049, but this bill establishes gold and silver-backed currency and provides mechanisms for issuing and redeeming precious metal-backed notes. Status awaiting review in the House State Affairs Committee. House Bill 1062 requires Texas to acquire about $4 billion in gold bullion and $1 billion in silver bullion to be stored in the Texas Bullion Depository, ensuring that the state has sound money reserves to hedge against economic uncertainty, which is so. Status referred to the House Pensions, Investments, and Financial Services Committee. Texas remains at the forefront of the sound money movement, taking a bold and proactive stance to protect financial sovereignty. If passed, these bills would set a precedent for states looking to bypass federal monetary policy and embrace a more stable, asset-backed financial system. So don't put all your eggs in one basket in the Bitcoin. You need to diversify, right?
Right.
I think that's what they're going to talk about in the next video.
Yeah, because it's eventually going to go down, so you don't want to put everything in it. But you want to really get gold and silver.
So $4 billion in gold and $1 billion in silver, Texas.
Sure to share that one.
Yeah. Let me get that shared out real quick. And here we go with this. This facing up to the great taking and ending central bank. This is going to go into that and what we're talking about as far as it. And this also includes the UCCs.
Yes. Yes, there's a it goes into the UCC to stop the loophole they have in order to take your property. So they're working with direct legislation to stop that, and he'll go into all that.
So if you own property, I would listen up. We'll play this.
Property.
We'll pause it in periodically to make a comment, or we'll just keep playing through depending on what's being said. All right, here we go.
It is deeply anti-human, and of course you lose your autonomy, your liberty, your agency to resist the powers that be. The only way to stop all these threats against humanity is to stop the funding, and it is the central banks that are behind this, that are controlled by a tiny group of people. What we really need is to repeal the Federal Reserve Act. How can we run from this? How can we hide? And my answer to them is you can't. This has been implemented comprehensively. So what we need is for people to face up to this. This is the first time a state legislature has ever pushed back against the banking lobby. So this is historic. The states have the right under the Constitution to issue a coin.
And that's where we go back to states' rights. It's the powers being sent back to the people and the states.
It should have been.
As it should have been.
Before 1933, it was.
Right. So don't panic. It's just something you're going to have to go through until you wake up and realize how this
all works.
how this is the restoration of the republic and a de jure under common law.
Right, which is done by we the people.
Yes. So now the ball is in our court.
Yes.
It's always been in our court.
It's our responsibility.
And that's why it's important for the people to recognize that, stand up in their states as Texans or Floridians or Virginians or whatever their state they're. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Buitink, and welcome to the Reinvent Money Show, a podcast about money and power. Today, I'm delighted to be talking again to David Rogers-Webb, a former hedge fund manager and author of the book and documentary The Great Taking. Last time we spoke was in February, and that interview was very well received and has been watched already more than 367,000 times. I advise everyone to watch that video too, of course. Today we're going to do a follow-up and focus on, for example, whether Trump will be able to stop the Great Taking, what the progress is on some of the legislative measures that are being taken to change the law in order to avoid the Great Taking from taking place. And we'll be zooming in on some of the questions coming from the audience. David, good to see you again. How are you?
I'm well, Paul. Thank you.
How was winter in Sweden?
Well, it's wet right now. We had an early winter spell, but and I had a plumber I had to get here, and he said, well, on Monday, all the snow will be gone. And sure enough, on Monday, it was all gone. And I said, you have one hell of a snow removal service. It was quite comprehensive.
Yeah. Well, in Holland, we struggle already with a little bit of snow, and everything is then directly completely in total chaos and shock. So I'm glad the Swedes do much better in that front. Last time we had a great conversation. It was very well received. Thanks again for that great interview we did together.
Thank you. I'm very appreciative of your work, and you're a great interviewer, and it was important. Yeah.
So we should try to avoid making a copy of that interview and then try to give some new insights to our viewers. But I think it would be good just for a few minutes if you could summarize again what the Great Taking is all about.
Okay, so as I always say, for 400 years, securities were your own property, were personal property. And that meant that the public was bulletproof in the event of failure in the financial system, because it was quite simply your property. So if it was not returned, that was criminal. And that is no longer the case. This has been subverted in a very deliberate process over about half a century. It was done first in the United States through changing the Uniform Commercial Code at the state level, and then led by the State Department. This was the U.S. State Department, so this was done by the highest levels. This was then forced globally, including in Europe. So what has been done is to shift certainty of control of the property from the investor to the secured creditors elsewhere in the financial system, so that in a systemic failure, it is the secured creditors that will take the property. The claims of the public, including, this isn't just the individual investors, this is all your pension plans, all investment funds, it is comprehensive. The claims only run to the first level intermediary, the broker, or the first level custodian, but the property is not held there. It is held at a higher level on a pool basis, where it is used without restriction and free of payment as collateral underpinning the global derivatives complex.
Yeah, and you've been trying to, or at least you've been supporting initiatives that try to address this problem, at least in the U.S., in certain states. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, well, that has been a miracle to me, the way this happened. we the first effort began in South Dakota without my awareness of it. The people involved had seen a Zero Hedge article about this. The lawyer Don Brandy, who we'll talk more about, and he downloaded the PDF, read it, and as he said, his first thought was, "This guy is crazy." And then he ran down all the references. He spent 2 weeks, and he decided, we have to do something about this. And his wife, Betty Brandy, was a state legislator in North Dakota for, I think it was 18 years before she timed out. She couldn't continue any longer. And then she became an advisor to legislators really nationally in the U.S. So they have an organization, it's something called the Pro-Family Legislative Network, dealing with issues to protect people and their families. And Don raised this with Betty, and they decided, well, this is a family issue, because if you're left destitute, that could be bad for your family. So we can take this on. And I have to say further about, the book, The Great Taking. My point here, this is not just about your IRA. This is about global subjugation. This is part of a global hybrid war strategy, just one component of that strategy to subjugate populations globally. And if you lose your property, it is difficult to, well, as I think we discussed last time, it's deep in the species having property, having a place. It actually relates to the ability to reproduce. So if you lose the security of property, it is deeply anti-human. And of course, you lose your autonomy, your liberty, your agency to resist the powers that be. So they engaged in this, and they brought the first bill. It was written. Don wrote the bill. I learned about it on the way to visit with G. Edward Griffin, which was the way I was starting the year. February 1st. And we then went to South Dakota and met the legislators. So there was, that was the first bill. The next bill was in Tennessee. And there's been some exposition about that. Now, what's the value of these bills? First of all, it makes it real for people that it's been put in a bill. Secondly, when people are drawn to actually looking at the language in the UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, they see how this was subverted. And it was very simply done. What they did was to say, in the first instance, well, the entitlement holders have priority to their investments ahead of the secured creditors of the intermediary. And that is the statement that is repeated by the bank lobbyists. That is the statement that was used to pass these changes in the UCC originally. What they omit now and what they omitted then is that there are two very broad exceptions to that allow the secured creditors to have priority 100% of the time. And that is simply that in the first instance, if the secured creditor has control, the secured creditor has priority. Now, control is a concept from bankruptcy law, but it basically means the ability to sell, to act on the asset, to sell it. And in this indirect holding system, you should know you do not have control. That's what has been achieved through this. It doesn't reside with you. It is elsewhere in the system all the time. The second exception is if it's a secured creditor of a clearing entity. Those secured creditors have priority all the time. Well, what are clearing entities? Lehman Brothers was a clearing entity. Goldman Sachs is a clearing entity. And all of the central clearing counterparties that house the derivatives complex are clearing entities. So all of the secured creditors behind those entities have priority all the time. So first instance, bringing the bill. Second instance, exposing directly in the bill how this was done. Then the third thing is the response of the banking lobby, which is very aggressive. They send their big guns very seriously to oppose us in this. Then the fourth thing is that they cannot refute this. Absolutely cannot refute this.
But they tried to. What was their response like?
Well, they have 2 points. The first is they say there has been no change in property rights, which is just manifestly false. They seem to believe that if, as we've seen elsewhere, if they just repeat something over and over again, people accept it. But it is, in this case, that is failing for them. And so it's not just the bank lobbyists that showed up, it's also the Uniform Law Commission that was behind, that is behind making the changes, that in their written response, that it does not hold up under scrutiny. Now, I'm going to use a bad word. They are just flat out lying. These are lies. The second thing, in addition to saying there's been no change in property rights, they say, well, this language is about having margin accounts, people being able to use their property for margin accounts. And if you make this change, people won't be able to have margin accounts. And it's really just a silly statement, because in the code itself, you see this is about secured creditors of the intermediaries, not of the client. These are not creditors of the clients. And margin accounts existed for many, many decades, a century, prior to these changes to the Uniform Commercial Code. So it's, and when you just think of it, if the customer actually has a solid claim to their own property, obviously they can borrow with that because they have control of the collateral.
Yeah, and then what's the next step? Because as a non-American, for me, sometimes it's difficult to understand these state processes. So the bank lobby, they gave their response, and then there's a uniform law, the commission, they gave their input, and who's now going to decide what in the next round?
So in South Dakota, the way they've stopped the process, in South Dakota, they really did it through control of the leadership in the House to prevent the hearing of the bill. It was overridden. There were so many legislators supporting this that was overridden. They forced it onto the floor of the House, and then they prevented discussion of it a second time. They said, this was heard in committee, stop wasting the people's business. We're not going to allow this to be discussed. So it can be subverted from the leadership level. In Tennessee, it was really breathtaking. There was a House subcommittee hearing. Don Grandy and I were there testifying, and that the bill was passed 6-1. Tennessee is a Republican-leaning state very strongly, but one of the major people questioning Andrew Guggenheim, who was sent by the Securities Industry Financial Markets Association. He is counsel for that organization. One of the main people questioning him was the head of the Black Caucus and Democrat in the state. And then they accelerated the Senate hearing to the next day. They did not have to have that. It wasn't scheduled so that Don and I could both be there. And in that hearing the next day, it was passed unanimously. And so for example, the Republican Senate Majority Leader voted for this. So the day before, the Democratic Chairman of the Black Caucus voted for this. And Betty Grandy leaned forward to me and she said, this now has national implications because it's clearly a bipartisan issue like nothing else.
So that's good news then.
Well, it was very powerful, but that, let's say the exposition continues. What we're doing through this is making these people, the banking lobby, show who they are and what they're really about. So what the way they then, it had to clear the full House committee the following week. And Don and I stayed to see that through because it was so important. And we went around and met with every member of that committee, and that we had tremendous support from people. I think the thing to say about representatives at the state level, they are not, they are regular people. They're not paid much of anything to do this. They work regular jobs. They don't have a staff. They are not controlled the way people are at the federal level. They're not in somebody's pocket. And so we found that these are real people who are there for the right reasons. And it was very moving to me to see that. And so we had tremendous positive energy, but on the second day of going around to the representatives, something had changed. And we eventually figured out that the banking lobby had threatened the treasurer of the state.
Okay. And how did you find out that?
Treasurer of the state, with the withdrawal of financial services from the state if the bill was passed. And the treasurer, and I think he's a good man, but he was threatened, and he has a big responsibility to the state. So I don't fault him. He was threatened with this, and he had to say, look, I don't know if I can go forward with this, or we should go forward with this until we understand what's happening here. And then the following day, under testimony, the banking lobbyists on camera threatened the state, said, if you do this, no financial service firm will do business in the state, and they won't do business with any other financial service firm that does business in the state. And this would be bad for the Depository Trust Corp. So why would you do it? Now, so all of this is just incredible exposition, really. There's a process we're in. And I think it's important for people to realize that the passing of the bill in the subcommittee in the Senate, these are unprecedented things. This is the first time a state legislature has ever pushed back against the banking lobby. So this is historic. But then they were threatened, and what they did was to say we have to have a summer study to understand this better. Now I have to say the summer study was not allowed to happen. They made this flimsy statement that the room where it would be held was being refurbished.
Yeah, they're just trying to buy time.
They didn't have it. But the momentum has continued building. And I will tell you that bill is coming back in Tennessee.
Yeah. That's nice, yeah. And do you think the momentum will accelerate now with Trump elected?
Well, I think the energy is there is a energy to do things. It will have absolutely nothing to do with Trump. I will say that, and we could talk about that. I think what is happening is that people are realizing that they have to take responsibility themselves, and this is very important to this whole Trump situation is it's important that people don't go back to sleep and assume that someone else is going to handle this for them. That's absolutely not the case.
So you sound a little bit skeptical when it comes to Trump. You think he can be a force for good or a force of bad in the U.S., especially when it comes to reestablishing proper property rights and giving people back autonomy and sovereignty?
That's not going to come from the so-called Trump administration.
Why not?
I think people have to understand that they are fooled over and over again by this construct. There is no difference between the parties, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. This is what is shown to people. It is a circus. There is no difference between these people. They work for the same people. They may have somewhat different rhetoric, but the program moves along regardless of who is there. So there's really no difference between George Bush, Barack Obama, John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, and Biden and Trump. There's no difference. I am an American. I have lived through this. I have studied this deeply. So now, why is this so powerful? I've had to think about this. Why are people so inactive? Why don't they take any personal responsibility for things through real actions? And I think it's deep in the control system of our culture. It is, and I hope I don't offend anyone, but it is Judeo-Christian. It is, but by extension, it's Islam as well. And what do I mean by this? It is this very deep thing in our psyche of self and other. And I believe this arose out of the need to kill things. Animals, there's a psychological burden to that, but also other people, and perhaps whole villages of other people. And the way that is dealt with psychologically is to conflate oneself with God and the other with not God. And then you can do absolutely anything to this other that is not God. But it extends beyond that, which is placing responsibility elsewhere, not on self, on the other. Responsibility is always on the other. And it's like a narcotic that people hit over and over again, especially if they're stressed, especially if they're being overwhelmed with everything in the news cycle, is the responsibility, the blame has to be placed somewhere else. So they do it in terms of their whole worldview, their architecture of everything. They do it with habitually in all their relationships. And to point out, people think, well, how could it be otherwise? And I would say, imagine a person 10,000 years ago, Neolithic person. Do you think they ever could have imagined that they could put the responsibility on someone else?
So you can survive in that way.
So this is a feature of civilization. And it is, of course, how organizations work, how companies work, how political organizations work. People survive in those organizations by putting the responsibility elsewhere, not on themselves. So it's kind of a psychological benefit of being part of a group. Now, so that's what the Trump regime represents, is another cycle of people putting the responsibility elsewhere, thinking this is going to be handled, so I don't have to do anything. And it is, meanwhile, the program will just move ahead. Trump is in place to execute the World Economic Forum agenda by 2030. This is no accident. and Biden and Kamala Harris were straw dogs. They were set up to be, they're like character actors, to be as weak and horrible as possible in order to provide a foil for this. And but even within that, there is a hopefulness and energy that people are feeling. So that has to be purposed properly. And so I as part of this, I want to be more hopeful about what I'm saying here. I think there are a lot of people that are not going back to sleep. They're wary now, and they're watching closely, and they're noting that there are a lot of things that are not changing here. And so in just a couple of weeks ago, I was in Dallas for this meeting of the Pro-Family Legislative Network. We met with, I think it was 183 state legislators, all in one room. And I have to say that these people understand their personal agency across the board. They know that things get done by their doing these things. So sure, they're hopeful about the national level, but they're not waiting for that. And so we had a tremendous response from these people, and it's given me great hope. That's that. You see, the other part of this is people are drawn into watching this circus at the national level, the federal level, which is completely controlled. All those people are bought and paid for. The Senate, the Congress, and the presidency, all the people that you were shown in the media. And it is only the only hope for the U.S., and I would say for the entire world, is at the state level in the United States. That's the agency at that level has to be recovered. And that is the purpose of what we're doing here. In addition to recovering, priority to property, it is something to begin. It is rightly focused on who the real enemy is, that is the author of all the threats against us. Why is that? Because they're all being funded. The only way to stop all these threats against humanity is to stop the funding. And it is the central banks that are behind this, that are controlled by a tiny group of people. So this is rightly focused. We have to understand it's a war strategy to create manifold threats so that people don't know what threat to focus on. And they take, if you take one threat at a time, you will never succeed. You have to understand where the center of the threat is and attack that. And so by the states focusing rightly on this and opposing the banking lobby, then we're getting somewhere. And then the states can move on to what we really need is to repeal the Federal Reserve Act, which sounds unbelievable. How could that happen? But it was easily put in place quietly without anyone paying attention. What you need is for the states to be control of the state to be taken back, and to have clean elections. Throw out the voting machines so they can't be rigged. If need be, recall the representatives from the Congress, from the Senate, I'm moving quickly here in what I'm explaining, but
it's very interesting. Yeah,
you have to directly once you regain control at the state level, you can reconstitute the federal level. It's always been so. That's the only way to do it. That's the way the government was designed. That is what has been subverted.
But do you still need the federal government at all then, David? Because if you think about it, and you want, for example, to do away with the Federal Reserve, a bit like what Ron Paul has been saying for all these decades, and the Fed, and most of the things can be organized on a state level, right? I mean, it's something in Europe where you're also based in Europe, of course, and I really question the European Union, and I also believe we as individual nation states in Europe need to take matters into our own hands again. But would the same principle apply then to the US, and should states break away? Or?
Well, I think as you sent me something before the interview about the gold-based transaction system
in Texas. Yeah, they're proposing a bill there too. Yeah,
that's also being discussed in other states, and that is brilliant because the states have the right under the Constitution to issue coin, and what they need is a judgment that they can use the bullion, extend that into an electronic representation, and that this right is reserved to the states. It must be asserted by the states. The Federal Reserve System, they aren't going to want this to happen. So people are going to be threatened. People at the state level have to have the preparedness of mind to stand up against that. But that is coming. What I find, people do not like being threatened. So it becomes counterproductive for the banking lobby to do that at some point.
Yeah, but it's also like, especially if you're only in two states active at the moment, and in South Dakota they're being threatened, and I can easily understand why they would pull back. But if you're working on this in dozens of states at the same time, I mean, these banks cannot threaten all these states at the same time. So then you form strength, and they could possibly beat that lobby.
Yeah, I will say to people, it's incredible what has happened in the last year, just a miracle, because we, I think, are likely to have action on this in 10 states. Serious discussions, preparations now, and discussions. There have been discussions with more than 20 states. People in more than 20 states. Now you're getting to the point where within the next year, this could affect upwards of half the country. And this is why the hopefulness, while I think that Trump is a fraud, under the umbrella of this, it is releasing this energy that can be acted upon rightly at the state level.
And then to answer my earlier question, is there a need for a federal government at all in your view?
Oh, I mean, look, the founding fathers were just brilliant. We've been led to believe that they were a bunch of self-serving people. They were brilliant guys who sacrificed everything to do what they did, and this has been they've been denigrated, and we have to it's been subverted. Our knowledge of the history of this, we have to go back and recover it, and the system of checks and balances between the branches at the federal level, but also the power of the states. It is the way to, there's this penchant for totalitarianism that never stops. So we have to have a mechanism to defend ourselves from that.
Yeah, at least go back in time and try to reverse some of the steps that have been taken in the past few decades. And the same applies to Europe. But if we at least could go back and give back power to the individual states rather than consolidating power on a federal level. That would be the right approach, the right direction. But
well, I think the EU is just horrible. There's nothing good about the EU level. I agree with that. That is just a mechanism for totalitarian control in Europe.
Yeah, and then if you zoom out, because you always talk about the program, the architect, as a layman, or when you look sort of superficially to what's going on in the world, you see a lot of friction, tension, lots of conflicts, hot conflict. It seems like every day I read about a new conflict. It all seems very chaotic to me. A lot of threats, so I can understand people feel afraid or threatened, which could be one big psyop, of course. But is there also a chance that your theory about the global program could eventually not hold anymore, because everything will break up and you will have a lot of competing elites in the future that all have their own plans, and maybe in the US they still want to roll out the Great Taking, but in other parts of the world they're doing something altogether. Is that also a scenario in your view?
Well, we're dealing with a totalitarian plan that has been running for more than a century. And totalitarianism is, it doesn't work for people. It doesn't benefit people. It's quite the opposite. I mean, there are a number of ways to look at this. I don't know if you know who J.J. Couey is. He's a biologist that I met at Ed Griffin's Red Pill in June. And J.J. was describing his experience through his study, his work. It's really, I don't know that he used these words, but it's basically like a religious experience, seeing or a spiritual experience as opposed to religious, spiritual experience, seeing the incredible infinite beauty and variety in creation that you see through the genome, for example. And this is the nature of creation, infinite variety. And but it cannot be controlled. It is uncontrollable abundance and variety. Now, this penchant for control seeks to standardize things. That so this is cut across understanding, science, education, which is basically propaganda, and healthcare, pharmaceuticals, and of course our systems of decision making, and the interest is in control of controlling things is literally at war with anything that cannot be controlled. If need be, it must be destroyed. Anything they cannot control, they will destroy. So in the economy, the way to meet unmet human needs is through continuous reorganization of autonomous decision makers, because they will organize to meet the unmet need. So it's distributed. That's how you serve people's needs, and it just happens naturally, but it cannot be centrally controlled. Bertrand Russell, who was a highly regarded as some kind of a genius and philosopher, mathematician, and but he had been a Fabian, and the Fabians are behind this global, early days of this global totalitarianism. Bertrand Russell wrote a book in 1953, and I'm forgetting the title, but it was basically about the future of the world given science. And his argument is that because of science, you have to have global government, one world government because of science. And that would make it possible to not have wars anymore. So that's supposedly the great good, that there won't be war. But he makes the point that if we're not going to have wars, we're going to need to have something else that will kill a lot of people. Kind of an odd assertion. We're going to prevent war, but we're still going to have something that's going to kill a lot of people. And he says perhaps a bacteria pandemic, things like that, we'll need to have. Now, why do we need that? Because totalitarianism can only survive if there is no liberty and freedom in any country. It cannot be allowed. Why? Because the country that is free will outcompete the totalitarian system, both because it is more efficient, and secondly, because people will fight for their freedom. So this was written in 1953. So this is what is behind what we are in. And in terms of the many threats that are so difficult to understand, I'll give some insight to that. When I was working in New York as a young guy, I managed a lot of processes and legal teams and negotiations. And one thing that was explained to me was even if you have a very, very weak position, an untenable position, what you do is you create many, many issues or threats against your opponent, problems for them. And these are things you can then trade away in the negotiations, the ones that are not important here. But it's very key that your opponent does not know what is most important, what your real objective is. So this is done in contract negotiations. It's also done in military strategy, where you create many threats and your opponent does not know which one to focus on. Now, that is why when we say, well, why would they force this fluoridation of water? And people, do not want it. Why are they now forcing gender change of young children? These things that most people are deeply troubled by. These seem to be unrelated things, but we have a banquet of these threats against us now. And it is, or the uncontrolled, millions of people coming across the border in California and Texas, which is absolutely real. It's insane. Why is this happening? So I've heard recently people say, well, if Trump just handles the border, job done. I'll support him if he just handles that. Meanwhile, the real objective is to protect the power of the central banks, the people who control the entire system, and to implement their program over the next 4 years.
Because you put a timeline, and it's 4 years is the time horizon that they have in mind, you think? Why 4 years?
Oh, the World Economic Forum, their plan was to have this all in place by 2030.
Yeah. So 4 to 6 years then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to give some more practical advice to our viewers, you talk about people need to start acting, and the inaction is a problem. We already discussed what's happening on the state level, and that there's momentum going on there. What else can people do? Because I also read, we didn't discuss it last time, but people that, for example, have a house but still with a mortgage, you did say last time that people should just pay off their debt if possible. Of course, it's not easy for a lot of people, unfortunately, but because if you have a house and still some debt attached to it, it could still be seized in a sort of deflationary situation like in the 30s of last century.
Yes. Let me come back to the house thing, but finish up on the states. I've had lots of people, very sophisticated people globally, and no one can refute what I've exposed here. But their first reaction is, how can we run from this? How can we hide? And my answer to them is, you can't. This has been implemented comprehensively. So what we need is for people to face up to this, to take action to stop it. So this is the important thing I'm saying. In the States, we really have a way to do this. And it is just by striking these exceptions. And we have to take this vector that we have right now and drive this. We need everybody to help us with this. Now, I want to say, Don and Betty Grandy, the group they formed, the organization to focus effort into this is something called True North Public Policy. The address is truenorthpublicpolicy.com. Now that's TRU, there's no E, TRU North Public Policy.
I'll put it in the show notes as well.
We need people to donate to support them. I pay for all my travel to do this stuff. All the book proceeds are going into True North Public Policy. But for Don and Betty to get to every state, probably multiple times, there's a lot of air travel, hotel. They aren't paid anything to do this. So this isn't just like, donating to something to make you feel good. This is real action, and they need to be supported. So I had to say that.
Yeah, that's clear.
Now going on to your home, I've said, there are lots of people that to try to get out of debt, they might destroy their happiness and their families and their marriage, the happiness of their children. And if that's the case, just sit tight, because lots of people are in debt. The main thing is we're in a war, and you have to get through these next few years. And so if you're in a situation where you have the support of people around you, maybe that's the answer. But there are people I know that have sold their homes just to get completely out of debt, and they buy a smaller place with cash, or they move out into the countryside. If your spouse is on board with that, maybe that's something to do. And then you look to your physical reality to get through this time. We're being threatened, including here in Sweden. They sent this pamphlet around to all households to prepare for
war. Yeah.
Yeah. They're promising it.
Yeah, it's also in Holland every day now. We read messages and articles about how individual households and companies need to prepare for war. So it's a lot of people also, of course, they say also in the comments of previous video, just buy Bitcoin and store it yourself, not an exchange. Is that a way to protect yourself?
Well, I think you want to eliminate intermediaries in every. You want to hold things directly, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I would, sure, people can have some Bitcoin, but they certainly shouldn't have everything in Bitcoin. And it's important to diversify in ways that you haven't thought of before. It's not a matter of diversifying in your financial assets, because those are all subject to this monolithic risk at this point. You might have something in the financial markets, but you could lose that if we aren't able to stop this.
Yeah, diversify your skills as well, right? Make sure that you're anti-fragile and can handle all sorts of situations.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, David. People can still, of course, go to thegreattaking.com to download the book for free and to also watch the documentary. I also read something about a film that's upcoming. Could you tell me a bit more about that?
I've worked, James Patrick contacted me, was at the conference in Stockholm where I first talked about this outside of Stockholm, and we've worked together closely to document these resistance efforts in the States. So it's very interesting footage that is in the can from all those events, and that will be coming out soon. It's just, I think he had a couple of terabytes
Okay.
to edit down. So that is coming. I mean, you can support that film because James is dealing with handling all this himself. If you want to support the making of that film, go to bigpicture.watch.
Live from the trenches.
Yeah, James did Planet Lockdown, was the maker of Planet Lockdown, and Nitrogen 2000, which you may be familiar with, Paul, about the plight of the farmers.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. Well, thanks a lot, David. And
This one? I can comment on that one, but just watched.
Oh, we're gonna watch that one. Okay.
Yeah, you got anything to say about this to sum it up?
Yeah, basically, like he said, and like we've been saying, the federal government they're not for us. They're against us. So the greatest show on earth is the circus. That's to keep you from doing what you're supposed to be doing at the state level to prevent, like he was talking about, to prevent the great taking, right? And working on yourself and your trust, or anything that you can do to get away from the system. So it's to keep you docile and sit back and just watch. They're not coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And there's many people working on that, have been working on it for years. So there is hope. Like he said, there's people fighting on a daily basis of all sorts of people. So we have to really understand that and take this seriously. We have to fight at our state level, push to have gold and silver legislation pushed through, and have them start minting. So that's what the original Constitution said, that each state has to mint their own currency, their own money species, right? So that's what we have to push, and that's what will save us.
And he also discussed an example of something that he's doing himself, created an organization, named it,
right,
and just a few people. Mm-hmm. You've seen what just a few people can accomplish.
Yes, exactly.
With Miss Gruffy, so
yes,
it doesn't take many.
No.
So this was about the property.
Yeah, your property and your money in the bank. There was another one in the Great Taking. To go back and watch the Great Taking documentary, he talks about not keeping all your money in the banks, like Mike had talked about. Leaving what you can to like pay your bills, but don't leave a bunch of money in there. Convert it into gold and silver, get some land, or do something, because we don't know how this is going to play out, and if there might be some that do get their stuff taken away as they're trying to push this, as they try to stop this. But this is reality. This is what's really happening because they do have an agenda for 2030.
Right. That's what I said, that it's crazy how everything that the people want is being pushed back, but everything that they want is being voted for unmatched or challenged.
And the people are supporting it, not knowing what they're supporting, their demise.
They just sent more bombs. They all voted 140 something to whatever, like a landslide, to send bombs to, I think it was Ukraine or whatever, just recently.
Yes.
But yet when they get into things like the controversial things, like the Epstein thing, for instance, they act like they're kind of they have to play the 50-50 role, and
right,
like they're divided, when in reality it's 100-0 is what they would vote. But if they did that, then you would realize that
it's a distraction.
Yeah, so they present to us a big back and forth, but in reality the agenda is still moving forward, and those big distractions. And as far as kicking the can and how they're handling the Epstein situation, we forget about the victims, that's still out there and still possibly taking place, human trafficking at the border, et cetera.
Right.
And
they're doing that to get our
emotions.
Yes, and that's the loosh they need.
Right.
They need the loosh to create what they want.
They want you to feel that to feel hopeless and that your voice doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. But it does. And they know it. That's why they want to keep you entertained with the shit show. That means they're not going to ever do anything themselves. They're not. There's not going to be justice from them. They'll do a charade, mock trials, just like the Diddy just thing. Mock trial, and nothing ever comes out of it. So,
like O.J. Simpson.
Right. But there will be a day of reckoning. There will. But it's not going to be from them. They're not going to do their own, because they're all compromised. They're all owned. So
we're not going to lack food or water or anything like that. We're going to lack knowledge, right?
Right.
That's the only thing that we're going to lack.
Right.
So that's what we're bringing tonight, especially with the Hague Act, private property.
Right.
Article 46 of the Hague regulations requires that private property must be respected and forbids the seizure thereof, public and private property, unless it is imperatively demanded by necessity of war and or for the successful administration of the nation. The Hague regulations demand a close relation between confiscation of property and overcoming the enemy's forces. As stated above, the United States has created and funded the enemy through the seized private property of the inhabitants of America, then justified the seizure of their property to overcome the enemy, all for their own profit and gain in violation of the Hague regulations. Pillage is defined by the Hague as plundered for private purposes and constitute military crimes in violation of the Hague regulations. Notice of claim, Trading with the Enemy Act. So that's the Hague Act, Article 46, private property. 1783, Treaty of Paris granted that the United States the right to administer the land known as America. The original Constitution therefore acknowledged the American people as the beneficial owners of the land and protected their sovereign status. Said grant did not convey ownership of the property to the United States, but merely the usufruct and administrative thereof. Notice the claim, Trading with the Enemy Act. Usufruct is where they benefit off of by you paying taxes to them. But it's your land, but it's your property, right?
Yeah.
You're paying.
Yeah.
And so somebody else is benefiting off of that instead of the people. That's why it's kind of like you so fucked, but at the same time, it's not. Go look up the USUFRUCT.
Yeah, it's an actual word.
But the United States was limited by their constitution that gave them faith only over that property actually seceded to the United States of America and left the balance to the people, the true sovereigns and beneficial owners of the land. The United States expanded their jurisdiction over the land and the people by converting their own status as servants of the beneficial owners to that of a military occupational force that controls America and that the American people today. It was an arbitrary stretch of authority needful to no-go end that can be imagined. This military occupational force was the result of an economic war waged against the American people by the private Federal Reserve Board of Governors in breach of the trust of American people, the American people relied upon the United States appointed Board of Governors to operate for the benefit of America and the American people. Notice the claim, Trading with the Enemy Act. So those who refuse to learn the lessons of history are bound to repeat the mistake. Is that what we're seeing here?
Yes.
History is repeating with examples of nations whose governments permitted private centralized banks to control and debauch their currency. The ultimate mathematical equation is complete and total bankruptcy for all but the elite. Widespread poverty, lawlessness, anarchy, much the same environments as paved the way for the Second War, is being visited upon us again and by the same people. When, not if, our own economy collapses, the people will accept anyone, even a despot like Hitler, who claims he can save you from financial ruin. The international bankers have historically been responsible for the crises and then even after the crisis, and have invariably had their man waiting in the wing for the solution, problem, reaction, and then solution,
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
For the problem they created. So they create the problem and they got the solution. Just keep that in mind. Like the daddy thing. Daddy's
Right.
home.
Right.
Come run. I got you. In the case of the federal government, we can print money, digitalize to pay for our folly for a time, but we will continue to debate our currency, and then we'll have a financial collapse. This is the road we are on today. That is the direction in which the humanitarian are leading us, but there is nothing humanitarian about the collapse of a great industrial civilization, and there is nothing humanitarian about the dictatorship that must inevitably take over as terrified people cry out for leadership. There is nothing humanitarian about the loss of freedom.
Okay. I can't read it so small. A dollar is a weight in gold, defined by the Coinage Act of 1973 and 1900, which is still in force today. A dollar specified a certain quantity, 24.8 grains of gold, or 372.25 grains of silver. In Blackwell's Dictionary 6th edition, dollar, the money unit employed in the United States, of the value of it 100 cents, or of any combination of coins totaling 1,000 cents. Gold and silver were such a powerful money during the founding of the United States of America that the founding fathers declared that only gold and silver can be money in America. Since gold and silver coinage was heavy and that inconvenient for a transaction, they were stored in the banks, and claim check was issued as a money substitute. People traded their coupons as money currency. Currency is not money, but a money substitute. Redeemable currency must promise to pay equivalent in a gold and silver money. The federal United States has government, and the U.S. Congress were not and have never been authorized by the Constitution for the United States of America to issue currency of any kind, but only lawful money, gold and silver coin. Okay. Okay. Caution. Federal, state, county, and city governments will not, repeat, not assist the people in restoring common law and the Constitution. It is not in their best interest to do so. The entire system of welfare, income, and property tax codes, ordinances, rules, and bureaucracy would cease to exist in the blink of an eye with the United States. The people and the citizens of this nation were forewarned against this formation of democracies. The alien constitution, financed and engineered by the Rockefeller, however, has nothing to do with democracy in reality, but is the basis and for the development of despotic and tyrannical oligarchy. The Constitution is but a reiteration of communist doctrines, ideology, intents, and purposes, and clearly establish a police power state under the direction of control of self-appointed oligarchy. The present operation of the de facto government in the United States is under foreign alien constitutions, laws, rules, and regulations. So he's talking about the Constitution, not the original one.
It will not assist the people in restoring common law and the Constitution. It is not in their best interest to do so.
No, they will not. That's why we have to do it, and it's our responsibility. The federal government has become to we, the people of today, what the British Crown was to our forefathers. The damage, the injury, and the costs have been higher than more money can ever repay. They have done what they were commanded by the Constitution never to do, and the time of reckoning is fast approaching. The body of evidence is overwhelming to support any criminal indictment. If we had control of our courts, and certainly as a cause for revolution, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to demolish it, and to institute the new government, having its foundations on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall mostly likely to affect the safety and happiness. That's the Declaration of Independence, 1776. Ooh, I put one extra 7. My hope is that you understand the gravity of our present situation as a nation. We are in deep trouble. An only way out is to fight this new world order. We must not support those in favor of its creation. We must fight their laws and courts whenever we see evidence that is rearing its ugly head as a last resort. If the courts are so corrupt in the streets, then we as guardians of our republic must in very short order take back the de facto government of our courts and common law by the creation of jural societies. That's from The Fruit of the Poisonous Tree.
Page 245, New World Order, right?
Yes. Is that it?
Yeah, that was all the way at the bottom. But we talked about. Yeah, I'm going to do that here in a second. I'm going to show the. Like we said, they took 41 days off vacation.
Right.
So, they're not worried about shit.
No, they don't care. And
as they infringe.
Like he said, they're pushing us through into a dystopia, right? That once we go in, you can't get out. And we are fighting back. We're fighting back, and we're going to continue to fight back. We're not going to let this happen, because that would enslave all our children again. In the future generations, that's not going to happen.
Right.
We have to go back to sound money per the Constitution. That's why it was put in the Constitution, because they knew that this day would come. Like he said, it was a masterpiece the way they set it up, but we let them slowly deteriorate that, and the lack of education and knowledge of what all is entailed, which we're all learning right now. All of us are learning this, is how we can save ourselves.
And if you haven't figured it out by now, our entire government is a huge mafia who launders our taxpayer money right back to themselves through foreign aid and endless wars. They all hate you and could care less if you suffer and die horrible deaths as long as they got rich.
Right. And like he said, if they don't have war, if they can't have wars, they want to destroy us through like COVID-19, right? There are a lot of people that died and still are. So that's the games they play. You have to realize that.
So several Bible verses warns of deception in the end times, with Jesus himself in Matthew 24:3-5, and 11:24, Mark 13:5-6, and Luke 21:7-8, speaking of false Christs and prophets who would deceive many, describes the coming deception orchestrated by Satan with signs and wonders through the man of lawlessness. That's why we're not getting any justice, because it's the man of lawlessness and nobody's going to jail.
Nope.
Additionally, and 2 Timothy 4:3-4 speaks of a future time when people will not endure sound doctrine, but they'll turn away from truth to myths. So Jesus' warning about false Christ and prophets deceiving many, even the elect if possible. The coming of the man of lawlessness as the Antichrist with all power, signs, and lying wonders. The prediction that people will reject sound doctrine in favor of teachers who appeal to their desires, leading them from the truth and towards fables. And descriptions of the Antichrist deceiving the world and the false prophet's deceptive worldwide religion, the New World Order. It's just the end times, what they're playing out, whether it be simulated or not. Exactly. Even the wars, right?
But you got to take it seriously, regardless.
Right. We were told in Revelations 13:3-4 and 13-14, deceptions of the Antichrist deceiving the world and the false prophets deceptive worldwide one world religion.
That's right.
It's going to be an AI Jesus, I think.
Well, it was going to be under Christianity just the same as they did back in Rome, right? They got rid of all the Gnostics, all the people that thought differently, but the Gnostics had the true teachings of what Christ and Mary Magdalene, all of them said, and that the Roman Catholic Church came in and redid everything, and you had to convert. You could only be a Christian or a Muslim. That's it. So that's what they were going to do again to get us all back in under their jurisdiction.
Right. That's why you have to know who you are.
Yes.
Didn't you type that right down here?
Because because they say they're Christian does not mean they're Christian. They have used that for many, many things as a cover. Remember, they're dissolved. They've been dissolved, but they only exist on paper. So we can't keep supporting something we're trying to replace with an actual constitutional republic. But it's not going to ever come from them. It's going to come from us.
You got to know who you are and what ray of light you come from. We all come from the one light. Just to know who you are?
No,
oh.
Hers.
Okay, I thought you sent me that. Know who you are. Peace. Okay.
Oh, it's up there.
You know what I'm saying? So this is the silver and gold warning. This is for the... Oh, let me open it real quick. Oh, it's already open. Here we go. Since we're talking about the financial, we'll keep it on that for now.
The United States no longer needs a CBDC. It already has it. So when the Genius Act passes, what impact do you think that'll have on gold and silver?
You have lost all your options. As soon as that bill gets signed, the system is changed. Period.
Hi, Lynette. So great to see you again.
I'm so happy to be here, Yankee. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, with the focus of my most watched YouTube video. You were my guest on it 2 years ago, so thank you. But since we did that video, the tide of popular opinion turned hard against CBDCs. Donald Trump, popular and prominent politicians, all openly opposed it. Multiple states, I think it's 11 states, legislated against CBDCs. They were called a threat to freedom, a threat to privacy, a threat to the foundational values of America. And rightly so, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Here's the thing, Lynette. The United States no longer needs a CBDC. It already has it. And it's about to be signed into law by the president, possibly today, and it's stable coins. And the bill is the Genius Act, guiding and establishing national innovation for U.S. stablecoins. And it is the first standalone crypto measure signed into law. I think stablecoins are literally the Trojan horse for a centralized, federally controlled digital currency that has all the trappings of a CBDC. What do you think?
I could not agree with you more, adding also the fact that who issues stable coins and why would stable coins be supported by this administration? But you're right. I mean, CBDCs were vilified, but this is a very easy way to make that happen without people realizing it. It also transfers the creation of money from banking corporations to any corporations. Everybody, Amazon wants to develop its own stable coin, and Walmart wants to develop its own stable coin. And what those stable coin legislation is about is creating a new artificial market for treasuries and dollars, because the market that we had up until 2008, which were really other governments and banks, right? And of course, they're changing the rules to inspire banks to hold more of the government's debt now. But that system has been already turned over to traders.
So the two biggest ones, Tether, right? That's the issuer of the stablecoin USDT, and Circle Internet Group. They just IPO'd really big. And they're the issuer of the stablecoin USDC. They're 1 and 2 in terms of market cap, respectively. But U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the U.S. would use stablecoins to ensure a U.S. dollar hegemony in payments and protect its role as the global reserve currency. And that drives up the demand for the dollar and debt instruments. That's what the Fed loves, right?
That's the whole goal. But let's look at this, because yes, you're absolutely right. This is about creating the artificial demand that has been going away for those more stable sort of holders. But they're still backed 1-to-1 by, what is that? Dollars.
Yeah,
and so
their
value is based on this. And the difference between the paper dollar, where you have a 0.00, and the stable coin with a point unlimited, is that they can steal from you and you won't even be able to see it through the normal inflation channels. So when the promise is there will be no inflation, heck no, they're going to be attacking your principal.
Yeah, stablecoin issuers are the 18th largest buyer of U.S. debt in the world. They have over $120 billion worth of stuff. Lynette, they're doing exactly what a Federal Reserve CBDC would have done. They are globally adopted. They are instant, borderless, and dollar pegged. Markets can use them, exchanges and payment apps integrate with them. And most of all, people trust them, Lynette. There's no public backlash. Ian Rachis, the co-founder of SmartDex, put it, why bother creating a CBDC?
Yeah, because you've got it already. Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Bitcoin was a Trojan horse. to get adoption.
Right.
They allow it to run. This is how they do it. They make it look so that it's something, oh, it's as good as gold. It's digital gold. It's not. And it's all, these stable coins are all based on dollars to create that market that's been going away.
They have freezability, confiscation, and sanction mechanisms built in. They can already regulate, trace, and even program under existing laws.
Exactly. And they have a layer of smart contract on there. What they want you to do is hold it on your telephone, right? Now, all of a sudden, you've got it here along with all of your tokenized assets. You've got all your equity right here. How easy is that to spend and flow into what the World Economic Forum predicted, that by 2030, you will own nothing. I don't think you'll be happy.
Well, assuming the Genius Act passes, what impact do you think that'll have on gold and silver?
Well, I don't think people realize, but when he signs that law, probably today, I'm sure he's going to sign it, he totally supports it, then the monetary system has changed. People aren't going to realize that. They think it's the way they always do it. They've gotten enough adoption that they do it quietly, they do it invisibly, they make things look the same, and then how do you catch a wild hog? You give them free food and you put it out there. They get used to getting that free food. So they'll run, right? Let those cryptocurrencies run. Let's get as many eyes and as much adoption on there as possible. And then you put up a wall. People don't notice. So I would say that this is the third wall is up. Okay. So they put up a wall, but they keep putting that free food there. And, first you're hesitant, like the CBDCs are like, But hey, there's lots of free food that those prices are going up and people are adopting it. They put up another wall, keep the food, put up another wall, and then very quickly in here, we're just waiting for the fourth wall. And when this gets signed, that fourth wall will be in. Having physical gold and silver in your portfolio, critical to retain your freedom.
And to your point about people not really noticing, the One Big Beautiful Bill actually included a provision for money accounts for growth and advancement, MAGA accounts, or I think the bill put it as, they call it Trump accounts, right? People can contribute $5,000 each year for their newly born child. A one-time $1,000 contribution from the Department of Treasury will be automatically deposited into people's accounts. Remember the stimulus checks? No physical check this time, directly deposited. So here's my question, Lynette. Where are these accounts going to be held?
Oh yeah, you're right. On the blockchain ledger,
there you
on
go.
The centralized ledger, they have absolute control of it. Even letting them deposit, letting people put money into an IRA, right? Now, there are good parts, but there are also bad parts because the government can control all of that. This is the same kind of thing. And they charge high enough fees to keep you in there. But once everything is digital, what are your options? You have lost all your options.
So when the Genius Act passes and becomes law, do you think people are going to wake up? Do you think we're going to see more gold and silver stackers?
I hope so. I mean, this is the battle, right? We're fighting for sound money back in the system, but we have to do community on a global basis. And all we have to do, I think, is get 3% of the population to stack gold and silver. And then I think that would give us enough clout to get sound money back in the system. Just keep in mind, must be redeemable. Because if you can't pull it out, that means if I don't like what the government's doing, or I don't like what the central bankers are doing, I get to go in and demand whatever percentage is backed. I don't care if it's 40%. I don't care. I don't care what that percentage is, because I won't care about the rest of the stuff that's in there. Like we saw in Zimbabwe, right? But if it's 40% backed in the currency and I have it and I can take that gold out if I don't like what's happening, The public now has the power, even if it's in electronic form. That's the battle.
Well, we're doing the best we can, you and I, to communicate and alert and help people learn. The lesson of this video is that stable coins are a trap, pure and simple.
Yep.
Stable coins centralize all private information that could connect individuals to their on-chain activity, and they put all that in the hands of the issuers, and by extension, into the hands of the federal government, who will be regulating and controlling those issuers. So this whole, stablecoin thing is another reason to stack physical gold and silver.
And as quickly as possible, because a lot of people think that they're going to know and be able to do everything like 1 second before it's going to become obvious to the world. That's not the way it works. I saw in 2007, when the dollar fell to its lowest level ever against its trading partners, I started saying something nasty this way comes. And it didn't become apparent to the public until over a year after that. That was July of 2007, and it became obvious to the public in September of 2008. But do you know how much stuff happened behind the scenes from that first one over? You've got to listen to these clues. You've got to believe them. And I've been prepping since 2008. Really, and became an urban farmer to execute the mantra and everything like that. We don't have that time anymore. That was a luxury of time, and I actually knew what was happening, which means I put a lot of time and money and effort into creating security in a lot of things. But that's why we have to come together in local community as well, because there is safety in numbers, and we all have to join that sound money movement and say no. And take our power back. This is our opportunity. If we don't do it now, I don't really know that I don't know when we'll have another opportunity. I really don't. And this isn't a fight for me because I'm old and I have plenty. So I'm not really worried about me or my children, maybe my grandchildren and future grandchildren. But we can't just think about ourselves. Oh, I'm okay. Oh, this legislation helped me, so I don't care what happens to anybody else. No, we all have to look in the mirror and say, if not me, who? And if not now, when? Because the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. We still have some time, but it's already begun. And understand the system, as soon as that bill gets signed, the system is changed, period. Doesn't mean that we can't have influence, because we still need a big crisis. And that's the other thing. People think that it's just going to be such an easy transition. Just boop, boop. That isn't the way it works, folks. We've got 4,800 times of examples that there is always a major crisis that happens. And what gold and silver do, because when one system dies, another system is born. But this gold and silver is your bridge to hold your purchasing power intact, have the ability to take advantage of the opportunities that always present during crisis. And then, oh my gosh, you are so much better off, and your family is so much better off on the other side of this, especially if we don't get sound money in this system. What's it going to look like for the grandbabies? A full surveillance, feudal lord system where you just have a handful of people that own everything. And look at the subscription model. You rent everything. And let me tell you, when it's full surveillance, because they've used these examples, they use the example of a car, an autonomous driving car, right? Everybody has them, right? You miss a payment, boom, your car just drives away, locks you out. Maybe it locks you out for a certain period of time, giving you an opportunity to make that payment. You don't make that payment, boom, it just drives away. Smart houses, locks you out of your house. I mean, come on, people, wake up. We have to take our power back. There is strength in numbers. strength in numbers. Let's come together and make this happen. We have to.
Woo, I love it when you get fired up, Lynette. Lynette Zhang of Zhang Enterprises. Please subscribe to her YouTube channel right after you subscribe to mine, of course. Her link is in the description below. Thank you so much, Lynette.
Thank you so much for having me, Yankee. This has been great.
So we know the bill already passed, right? So it's already started. And like she said, we have to do the gold and silver, like the other gentleman said. That's what's going to save us. And we've got to have sound money. Otherwise, we'll go into totalitarianism, surveillance, and the future generations will have no hope of getting ever out of it. So this is a must. This is our priority. The stable coin is the Trojan horse to bring in the surveillance and everything else. So that's just reality.
And people are like, well, somebody stole 80 billion from there, so there has to be walls put up. And it's like, okay, well, we didn't steal the 80 billion from the market, so
Right.
why are we having all the security measures on us as if we flew the planes into the damn
Right.
World Trade Center?
Right. So they try to always put the blame on us, right?
Yeah.
And when it's them, and like you said, and the other gentleman said, they create a crises, right? So that we accept these things. And right now, the economy wasn't good. The economy wasn't doing good. We wanted cheaper gas, cheaper this. So guess what? They'll give you crumbs. They will give you crumbs to pacify you. But it only lasts for a little bit. Like she said, they'll let it run, and then they'll start clamping down on things, right? Just like they did the Patriot Act. That was only supposed to be temporary because of terrorists. Got to make sure there's no terrorists, and it's still in place today.
Same thing with Palantir.
Yes.
10 years, AI, unregulated. No laws could be passed by each state, taking the power away from each state.
Right.
With the big beautiful bill.
Right. So the sound money, like the other gentleman was talking about, doing the legislation for each state, and if they start coining and minting gold and silver backed currency, then we can get that into circulation, which that's what we need to do. So we got to push for that in each state.
So there seems to be several different types of organizations started, and on all different fronts, or you can tackle them all.
Right.
Right.
But the most important is right now is the currency, because they want to go into a new system. They, like she said, that the old system's dying, so a new one needs to be born. But they want their new one. We want our new one,
because they want,
and we have more people.
And they want to cover up the crime that they don't have with the gold and silver, and they don't have enough money to give, or anything to give back to the people if everybody decided to withdraw all their money at once.
Right.
They don't even have it.
No.
So if we go digital, it covers up the crime.
Yes.
Therefore, nobody wakes up to the fact that everything was stolen in 1933. Or we can even go back to 1913.
Right.
1911. Right here, I took a note, because those are key dates.
This starts right here. The ones I sent you. Okay.
I'm looking for a little note I sent myself.
And like she said, you want, even electronically, if you do have some Bitcoin or some stable coins, we want to be able to trade it in for gold and silver. If that's not possible, then we have a big problem.
We're standing on the Constitution.
Exactly.
And that's what holds them accountable. Okay. Yeah, we share a lot of stuff.
And like she said, strength in numbers, just like we did earlier for Scruffy Lou, right? We all came together and we got accomplished something. That's what we all need to do in our communities and state level, is all come together. Join these organizations, see where you can help. If you don't know how to start or what you can do, or just getting the information out, sharing the videos to educate people of what this actually is and what they're trying to do behind the facade of everything's going to be great. And they sell it to you. They're salesmen. They sell it to you in a pretty package, right? Just like they did in 1933 when they took us off the gold standard.
Yeah. Let's see. And here is right here. In 1912, the Titanic, this is what started it all.
Right.
1913, the Federal Reserve is created right after that.
That's, yes.
And then in 1914, World War I breaks out. See how that went? Boom,
That's
boom.
how they do it.
1912, 13, and 14.
It's all
The Titanic. Well, that ain't the Titanic, but
right. And they say that no one actually died on that, so that's allegedly. But there is some documentation. If you get that book that we went over the other night about the geoengineering, nothing's true, everything is a lie. It has the articles and stuff that said that they all survived. So you can check that out in that book.
so that's all linked to I'm trying to get my pen messages or something. Hold on. This one right here. Well, it's my Telegram not responding. I'm trying to open this up because we're talking about all the way back from 1912, 1913 of the
Crises.
yeah. So I wanted to pull up. Come on. Up. Where did it? Are these all the pin messages? No. Because we're talking about property taxes and stuff, all that. Because this is all connected.
Yes.
Also, this is how they got with the property. So, who's the field soldier for the assigned by the corporate operatives of the Khazarian mafia to rob the people's equity of their property via that Roman tax? It's called property tax, right? And most of it is designed to go to the operation of what agreement with the Roman order. It starts with a B, Balfour Declaration, right?
Yes.
They created an artificiality under a name of a religion of people claiming to be somebody, but they are not. That's where the tax money goes every year. That's why every praetor for the United States Corporation Company always mentions them in support when they are inaugurated, because they actually own the corporation. Their administration instrumentally is called the Federal Reserve Bank. So people don't tie that to the Rothschilds in their minds, do they? And then they don't tie that to the United States Corporation Company, do they? They don't tie that to the Unum Sanctum, do they? They don't tie that to Jekyll Island. Remember Jekyll Island?
Yes.
And the ritual they did right there? And they don't tie that to the conversation of the allodial titles, of the aboriginal titles to mortgages and deeds of 1913. See, this goes all the way to mortgages and deeds in 1913.
Yep. And they took it.
Yeah. And the extraction from the people in 1917. I just gave you the timeline. They went from 13, 14, 15. Titanic sank in 1913. And then 1913 here also sank with So the people in 1917, which is the property tax and the tax assessment offices. No, wait, it says, and then the extraction from the people in 1917, which is the property tax and its tax assessment offices in all jurisdictions of the United States, which is total fraud. And that's what is breaking the system right now. Just like, remember Spanish flu 1917 and the war power tax 1917. Same thing. We just had a scamdemic, right?
Yep.
We're repeating the history into what we talked about earlier.
Yes. Spanish flu, same thing, pandemic to destabilize, right?
Right. So the property tax is what they have been using to fund like Occupy Palestine since World War II, unconstitutionally, robbing your estate to fund them, and every one of them have a seat in every office of those representatives that represent them, not you. It's called the shadow government. Some call that group AIPAC. That's who really runs it. AIPAC owns the corporation, and the United States is not a country, it is a corporation. So we're going right here. Titanic sinks. 1913, the Federal Reserve is created. 1914, World War I breaks out. Start connecting the dots. Yeah, let me.
Submarines, which were a surprise to the world.
And here we go with the false flags, right? Operation False Flag, or whatever this one would be, to get us into the war.
Yeah, oh yeah.
1914 was the year in which World War I broke out. Within 2 years, Germany had won that war. The German submarines, which were a surprise to the world, had swept all the convoys from the Atlantic Ocean, and Great Britain stood there without ammunition for her soldiers, stood there with 1 week's food supply, and after that, starvation. At that time, the French army had mutinied. They lost 600,000 of the flower of the French youth. The Russian army was defecting. They didn't like the Tsar. And the Italian army had collapsed. Not a shot had been fired on the German soil. Not an enemy soldier had crossed the border into Germany. And yet, here was Germany offering England peace terms. Well, England in the summer of 1916 was considering that. Seriously. They had no choice. While that was going on, the Zionists in Germany went to the British War Cabinet. Look here. You can win this war if the United States will come in as your ally. The price you must pay us is Palestine after you have won the war and defeated Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey. They made that promise in October of 1916. Now, that is something that the people in the United States have never been told. They never knew why we went into World War I. After we got into the war, the Zionists went to Great Britain and they said, let's have something in writing that shows that you are going to keep your bargain and give up Palestine after you win the war. And that was called the Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration was merely Great Britain's promise to pay the Zionists what they had agreed upon as a consideration for getting the United States into the war. That is where all the trouble started.
See, war declared by United States.
Yep.
Boom. Resolution passed by both houses of legislature. Army of 2 million.
Yep.
And that's when it all started. We haven't had a war. We look back, I could pull up all the times that we've been to war and all the time, and it lines up exactly with as when the same timeline as the Balfour Declaration.
1914.
Right.
Oh yeah.
World War One.
Yep.
Which, let me go back. So this is all connected to property taxes, property, and what it's used for, what they've been using it for. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like he was talking about the occupied Palestine, all that is just everything's repeating everything. So
Because
we haven't learned our lesson, and that's what we're learning now. We're being educated with knowledge of the truth, so we can correct this.
And we're able to reach more people via
the internet.
Yeah, so we're using their weapon
before.
Against
yeah.
something that they created to control us. We're now using it to our advantage.
Exactly, and we can communicate, all even across, the world. So the information gets out quick, and we can respond quickly. So that's what's so awesome about this time, right? Because we can stop something before it goes too far.
Well, you learn from your mistakes.
Yes.
Because if you forget history, you're doomed to repeat it, right?
Exactly, and that's how you repent as a nation. Repent means to change your ways, correct your ways. So that's what we're doing now. We're repenting as a nation by correcting these things and doing what is moral and truthful, right? The way it's supposed to have been.
And then we go right here to all the different wars. So you look at the start date: USA 1945, 1946. Iran, none. Like there's nothing over here, right? So countries attacked by bombing, sabotage, or attempted government overthrow since World War II, and then we see where it cranked up since Pearl Harbor, right? And it hasn't stopped all the way to 2011 in Libya, as far as this chart's updated. But the irony is, it says Iran wants war, but they don't have a history of it.
No war, no.
But we see, since we've been captured, we've been on a rampage. Syria, Korea, 1950s to 53. China, again, 50 to 53. Iran in 1953. Guatemala, 54. Tibet, Cuba, Indonesia, the Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Iraq, 60 to 63. See how we're repeating it. Dominican Republic in 61. Vietnam, 61 to 73. So they just keep us in that War Powers Act. So they constantly get the taxes for in support of their operations.
That's right.
Our property taxes. Brazil, 64. Belgium, Congo, 64. Guatemala, 64. Was that Laos, 64 to 73. Dominican Republic, 65 to 66. So they're doing like multiple. Vietnam was like what they focused on as they did other things simultaneously. Peru, Greece, Guatemala, Cambodia, Chile,
resources, land,
Argentina, Turkey,
change.
Right, constantly. Libya, Iran. Okay, so we see that. Here's the list up close.
Yeah, that's a lot.
We're not even counting after 9/11. Yeah, we are a little bit right here. Iraq, 2001, 2002, 2003. Afghanistan, we were there in 2001.
Iraq, Somalia.
Well, we went to Iraq first, though, right? Because we already were in Afghanistan. Had to been. Because we were there in 98. So that's one big ass connect the dots. What?
I think that one was the one you were looking for.
Oh, I found It was this one, the 1912 Titanic sinks, so they could start connecting the dots. Federal Reserve is what we're talking about in the video from earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Doing away with the Federal Reserve, which once that came into play, we started going to war, right? And it's the people that were on the Titanic. Do you want to read this one? So this one's also talking about 1917 to warn the people. Yeah, also this was back then?
Yes. See, it says history repeats itself.
Yeah.
Okay, U.S. Congressman Charles Lindbergh Sr. from Minnesota revealed this before the U.S. Congress between 1907 and 1917 to warn the people. We bankers must proceed with caution and guard every move made, for the lower order of people are already showing sign as restless commentation. Prudence will, therefore, show a policy of apparently yielding to the popular will until our plans are so far consumed that we can declare our designs without fear of any organized resistance. The Farmers Alliance and Knights of Labor organizations in the United States should be carefully watched by our trusted men, and we must take immediate steps to control these organizations in our interest or disrupt them. At the coming Omaha Convention to be held July 4th, 1892, our men must attend and direct its movements, or else there will be a set on foot such antagonism to our design as may require force to overcome. This is at the present time would be premature. We are not yet ready for such a crisis. Capital must protect itself in every possible manner through combination, conspiracy, and legislation. The courts must be held to our aid. Debts must be collected, and bonds and mortgages must be foreclosed as rapidly as possible. When through the process of the law, the common people have lost their homes, they will be more tractable and easily governed through the influence of the strong arm of the government applied to essential power of imperial wealth under the control of leading financiers. People without homes will not quarrel with the leaders.
History repeats itself in regular cycles. So this truth is well known among our principal men who are engaged in forming an imperialism of the world. While they are doing this, the people must be kept in a state of political antagonism, right? The question of tariff reform must be urged through the organization known as the Democratic Party, and the question of protection with reciprocity must be forced to view through the Republican Party.
See how they play the left and the right
to
look like this party's doing it and the other one's against it, but really that's how they do it.
By thus dividing voters, we can then get them to expend their energies in fighting over questions of no importance to us, except as teachers by the common herd. Thus, by the discrete action, we can secure all that has been so generously planned and successfully accomplished. So know who you are, your status. If you claim to be a U.S. citizen, Canadian citizen, or any other form of citizen other than a citizen of the Father's kingdom, you do not know who you are. and this will not work for you. The Bible tells you that you cannot serve two masters. A citizen is a property or a subject of some king or master. God, the divine creator, is your king. As a sovereign by the grace of God, we owe fealty and homage only to God. We fulfill that fealty and homage by being good stewards and loving all of God's creation unconstitutionally, unconditionally. Yeah, constitutionally, unconditionally. So, most of the events that you're witnessing in the news cycle each day are just distractions to keep your mind occupied until the Terminator robots are scaled up for and dispatched for final extermination operations. So this is like the Terminator.
Yes.
So the controllers don't care what you think about politics, economics, crypto, gold, or anything else. Your opinions and demands are irrelevant to them, and security for them goes beyond dollars, gold, or even geopolitical power. Their real security comes down to the mass extermination of billions of human beings so that no one is left to threaten their power or dominance. They only need a small contingent of humans to exist for a few more years to build the data centers, robot factories, and expand power sources that will unleash superintelligence and self-replicating robot factories. The rest of humanity will be easily culled through the engineered war, famine, pandemic, poisonings, and economic collapse, all of which are right now underway. The daily breaking news bombshells you're fed by the establishment is just a laser light by the cat to be chased by cats, and you are the cat, but you got to be the gray cat. Remember I showed the gray cat and the black cat?
Yes.
The gray cat was actually one that said, hold on, who's controlling this?
Exactly.
And then looked up at the
other
hand.
one was looking at the laser.
So if you keep chasing the fascinating red dot, you will never notice the bigger picture of what's actually happening. This is the one right here. Here we go again. You don't want to be the black cat. All right. Remember the drones?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Everybody was freaking out over the drones. That's about it for tonight. Tomorrow we're gonna have we're gonna talk about the what are we talking about tomorrow?
Notice of claim.
Notice of claim.
Right. That's to try to get your birth certificate money, but it's a process. But we'll just go over that, and Cots is going to be on to come bring a couple things, some information as well.
And we already have that ready to go for tomorrow night.
Yes.
We're going to bring some more stuff on the one light, seven rays, sacred light, and how everything is one. There's no escape from the grid.
Right.
We're all connected, even through the animals, the plants,
Everything.
the human. And we're going to talk about the 7 human emotions. It's still all connected to the chakras. sacred geometry embedded in your DNA. The 7 rays, 1 light, 7 rays, how that refracts when the 1 light hits goes to the firmament. You have 7 layers of light, but it's all UV light comes from the 1 white, but 7, and you, depending on where what you vibrate at, is what color you are, right? But you can go up or down. And then that way you find out your purpose and what resonates with you and what your mission is and your personality traits and stuff like that. It's just like the 7 planets, the 7 churches,
7 chakras, 7 realms.
Yeah. I think I got a couple little examples real quick.
We have a lot of information we'll be going over this week on a lot of this type of subject, so we can educate, share knowledge, and fight back. Right? This is our fight, the final battle. Right? Send that admiralty law back into the abyss, the ocean, where it belongs. The law of the water.
So the 7 trumpets, the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, the 7 bowls, 1 light, 7 rays, 17 is the key. Q is the arc, the 0 and the 1, mother and the son. Here's the 7 meditations of 7 angels of Revelations. You see 7, see the female at the end.
7, yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In the circle, we are all equal. These are your 4 corners, 4 cardinal points each season. When in the circle, no one is in front and no one is behind. No one is above and no one is below. And that's what the circle. Now the politicians call it a round table.
Right.
The secret of light, the principle of love. That's all I got. What a quick bargain. I guess they wanted me to get off. So this is the secret of light. The principle of love is desire to give. The law of love is rhythmic balance, interchange between all givings and regivings. The symbol of love is the wave of dual light, which gives and regives equally and rhythmatically. It's the same thing right here. March, July, September, December, 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, and it starts over.
Right.
You can teach everything with this one sound wave.
Yep.
The sun even takes its path, and the moon.
Yes.
Silver and the gold.
Yes.
DNA. Right. So that's all we got.
So that was a lot of information, but don't get discouraged, because there is things in the work. There's people fighting. We're fighting. We all have a calling, right? We all work together. We can get through this, and we've already won. We already know that. We just have to stand up, speak out, let your voice be heard.
So today's a 9/11 date.
Yes.
What's today?
21st.
7/22. 7 and 4 is 11 plus with the 9, 9/11. So we got it right here. How that relates.
LME 11.
Right. Israel.
Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. What is your name? What is your name? I refuse to answer. No. My name is Johnny Carson. How do you know that? To be your name.
Well, it's on a birth certificate, legally
That's
recorded.
hearsay.
That's hearsay?
Of course.
I mean, if it's legally recorded,
That's still hearsay. Suppose you were born, and I must assume that you were born because you're here tonight with us. There's a certificate made out not by you, certificate made out by somebody else. That a boy child was born to Mr. and Mrs. Carson, and that he was named Johnny. That doesn't mean that you know that to be the fact. That means you have read that to be the fact.
yeah, I see what you mean. In other words, I only have to go by what is recorded.
You're pleading guilty to something that you don't know of your own knowledge.
It's all hearsay.
Yep, they were telling you back then, but most people didn't realize that. I guess.
Consciousness wasn't there yet.
Right.
Some people,
What they tell you.
not saying somebody must
So
have
there,
been.
there you go. Say it's here. It's hearsay.
That's
Are
hearsay.
you so and so? That's hearsay.
That's all we got.
Keep Mike in your prayers, and if you can donate to Truth Seekers 88, that's what keeps this show going.
Subscription.
The subscription.
Click
Share it.
like and subscribe and share the video.
Right, share the information because it's important information that we need people to understand this financial part, especially. A lot of people have been warning people for years. We just kind of late in the game, but it's not ever too late, right?
That's it. There, I'm done. We will share these videos out and links here shortly on Rumble. Please click and subscribe to those channels as well. And that's
And be sure to join tomorrow because we got a lot of good information, and cause it will be on to bring
Yep.
her great information as well. So we're looking forward to that.
there's the website at the bottom. And that's all, folks. Y'all have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Love y'all.
We are not the enemy. We want peace, we wanna live free. We want clean water, clean air, a life that's fair, a world that cares. We don't wanna pay just to survive, to rent a life on the land we're born by. We wanna raise our kids in love, not fear, not war, not push to shove. We want healthy, happy lives, food that's true, no more lies. We don't need someone on a throne, we just wanna live and be left alone. We are taking our home back hand in hand, a world that listens, a world that understands. We're tired of fighting just to eat, of systems built to make us weak. We're not the ones who broke the trust, but we'll be the ones to build what's just. We want healthy, happy lives, food that's true, no more lies. We don't need someone on a throne, just want heaven back on Mother Earth. To live in happiness, abundance, and peace. That's all we've ever wanted. That's all we ever need.
Do the two-step, then cowboy boogie.